I bought 3 acres of land outside of a wildlife sanctuary for the sole purpose of rebuilding the biodiversity of the plants and the animals. And with this vlog, you are going to be following my journey, all the ups, the downs, the things I learn about the land, different techniques. You're gonna be with me as I document all of the plant and animal life in this area. Now, I know it might have looked planned, but I promise you I did not know that this existed before I bought the property. I wanted a challenge. I am very passionate about rebuilding the earth. So I took on this passion project in a pretty isolated region. But little after getting here and checking out the area after purchasing the land, that is when I saw this sign and I knew that it was a sign from up above. I was called here by either the ancestors of the land or the spirits of the animals to come and steward the land once again. And really, that's what Project Oasis is about. It's becoming a steward of the land again, showing you guys what that looks like and helping you guys remember how to be stewards in your own pieces of land. And speaking of the animals, the last episode we were here, we were talking about the camera that I'm setting up in different spots of the land. Well, I want to share with you guys a couple of videos from some action that we found. Now, you'll notice in the video that one of them has its tail up and the other one has its tail down. The one that has its tail up really looked like a dog to me in the way that it was wagging it. Also, the color would be unlike anything that is out here. And of course, the other one is simply a coyote. Very easy to tell those. They're skinnier. They usually run with their tails between their legs. And he was checking out the compost. But that's really exciting that we have some movement. However, sadly, in just 1 week, we were only able to get those two recordings. So now it's time for me to look around, follow some tracks, and see where new holes are being built and select my next area where the camera is going to be covered. Now, it is kind of hard to tell where the tracks are. I'm getting a good mix right here, but generally they're coming in this direction. And so this camera has been pointing the whole other way, closer to the compost. But I'm going to be pointing it at that peak right there. That is where we get our rocks. That is where I've seen a lot of droppings as well. And we're going to see what we capture. Besides that, the big goal on the land today is to dig out the holes that you guys seen me mention in the last video. As you can see, I am putting down the posts and marking the areas that I want to dig at. But today I'm actually going to show you guys the shapes that I'm going to be doing. They're going to be pretty unique in the land. I'm also going to show you guys, well, me actually doing it. And so you can get a sense of the scale of it and how big I'm doing it. Again, I don't want, and you guys have seen me mention this in multiple videos, but I don't want just a couple of big earthworks in the ground. I want a good amount of large amounts of fairly small ones, manageable ones, because I just want to cover as much surface area as I can. And we've already had a couple of sprinkles, and so I know the rainy season is coming and there's going to be a lot of water at once. So I really want to be prepared in just the 3 weeks, maybe a month that I have left before they start coming in. And then the last update before I get the shovels into the ground is I am going to be listening to you guys and following your guys' advice to get a affordable drone that I can fly out here and show you guys these works and my plans from that bird's eye view. So if you guys have any recommendations for any beginner drones, I've never flown a drone before, go ahead and comment the drone down below. And another tip that I'm going to follow from some of your guys' suggestions is to take the dung that I have found and simply bury it. And sounds like common sense, but it's just not something that I thought about. But you guys are right. You know, it's going to speeding up this process of decomposition, which my land needs as much organic material inside of the soil um, as much as possible, as quick as possible. Just to show you guys one that is fairly fresh. I'd hate to be the dung guy here on YouTube, but this you can see, if anybody's ever owned a dog, this very much looks like a dog stool. And so, one advice that I'm going to take from one of the followers or the subscribers that I have is taking these pieces of dung and burying them and kind of speeding up that process of breaking down. If you look around, they're starting to take over everywhere. So thank you guys for your suggestions. I am really open to them. This is something, it's a passion project of mine. I've been very passionate about rebuilding land, but I've never done it at this scale, 3 acres, and I've never done it this off grid, and I've never done it in this type of climate. And so usually I have water to work with, I have materials to work with, not really here. That's why I'm relying on the natural materials that are on the land already, which all these different shrubs, not different, really the same creosote, but I'm leaning heavily on the rocks that are already here, the sticks and the organic material that is already here. And I'm also relying on the animals. I'm relying on the animals to leave their dung and pee and um, carcasses and different things like that on the land. That's just going to help the land out even more. Some great news. It looks like the wild animals are loving this bowl that I created. I've been able to see a lot of tracks, as you guys can see. They come from here and they lead all the way to the workshop area. Let me show you guys. And it gets pretty intense. You'll see a couple, here and there, and they're super obvious. Obviously this is a dog of some sort. Coyote, I'm just gonna assume. Here we go. So many of them. But look at where it gets a little crazy. I don't know what was going on here. Look at this. So many of them. You think they were running in like a pack or something? Look at all this. But the way that they look, they're so close together. I don't know if he was scattering. I don't know if he was chasing something. But they're kind of just like everywhere. They're so obvious on the camera. I'm glad you can see them. And so I'm thinking maybe I should set up the camera right next to the bowl, maybe facing the bowl, maybe facing from the bowl to the peak. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Right here is where we're going to be doing our first earthwork. Now, all of our earthworks are going to be very unique. They aren't just going to be holes in the ground. They're not going to be cookie cutter. They're going to be different designs that I believe can benefit in capturing not just the water, but also benefiting the plants that are growing in or around these structures. The first one that I'm going to be doing is going to be right next to this river. I put quotes there because I don't really know if it's a river yet. But based off, well, I haven't seen it from my own eyes. However, just off of me kind of surveying the land, I can tell this is where a waterway comes. And so, using that prediction, I am going to be building next to it. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be building a swale, cutting it basically in half for people who don't understand that terminology. I like to keep it simple, cutting it in half, like putting a slash in there and leading that all the way over here to where I'm building this design that's going to help kind of move the water there. Okay, I'm going to build a rock dam. We don't have beavers here. So I'm going to be acting as the beaver and building a dam with some rocks. I'm going to have it maybe have it on the other side as well. Um, and what this design is going to look like, at least the first one, it is going to be a sort of a bullseye in the ground. Now, let's look at this image of the floating island almost. I'm going to be carving out a circle of about 2 feet in depth where I can put plant materials, I can put rocks, and then that can be the kind of water catchment area. And in the center, I'm going to be putting a bunch of native plants, grasses, trees. I'm going to bunch them up in there in this Miyawaki, I believe it's how you pronounce it, Miyawaki method of planting, where basically you're mimicking the rainforests. You are mimicking the very, very tight spaces, the very high density spaces where there actually is competition going around. And competition, I mean, competition will make you stronger. Competition will make you better. I am a sports player myself. I'm a basketball player. So, I truly believe that a healthy amount of competition can help you reach your highest level. And the same thing for the plants. And that's why the forests do so well. And that's why they are self-sustaining. And that is the point of this project, so that I can get this land to be self-sustaining again. I don't want to have to come out here and water things, because nature should not be like that. Okay. So this first structure is going to have all of the structures are going to have the Milwaukee method, where I'm planting in a high density of plants in this small area. And I'm going to be experimenting with the different shapes. Some of them are going to look like this bullseye. Some of them are going to look like something else. It's going to be different shapes to see which ones perform best, and also just to get a different look in the landscape. Again, if we go back to the forests, to our mother forests, they are not cookie cutter. They are not perfect angles, perfect everything. Okay. It is very diverse. It's very biodiverse. It is very, I guess humans would call it random. Okay. But nothing is random. Everything is placed for a reason. Everything is placed right where it needs to be. So I want to copycat that quote unquote randomness, okay, here, because I know that the plants and the animals are going to thrive. This trench right here is going to be about 2 feet deep. And in this middle is going to be the start of a Milwaukee forest. I'm going to plant, I don't know how many species, but many, many species of grasses, trees, shrubs, different heights, right? And one thing that I'm going to do to protect this area, because all of this needs to be protected, because as soon as the green comes, the animals will go crazy and destroy it. So we want it to be self-sustaining eventually, but we have to protect it in the early stages. And here she is, the floating island of the desert. Took me about 30 minutes to do. A lot of sweat. That was definitely a good workout to move all this sand. This is a pretty large little platform I got going here. About 12 feet. About 12 feet. That's pretty cool. Let me show you the so-called river. You can see it right here, how it kind of winds. And so ideally, the water is gonna come down this little slope. I made sure this was elevated a little bit so it can catch the water. It won't let it go back out. This is gonna go down here. And then eventually this slope is gonna allow it to come down here and kind of go all the way around. I left this part open because the slope is that way, so the water will be coming over here. In case it wants to come in through here as well, it can do that. But this is where Milwaukee Forest #1 is going to be planted. What do you guys think? So there is site #1. This is the river right here, and off to the other side is going to be site #2. This one's going to be a lot smaller in diameter. I'm probably going to do a different shape, or I just might do that. But the important part is I'm going to dig a swale right here, like a trench right here, that's going to connect the two. Okay, and there's going to be rocks, so it's going to be a rock check dam right here, so all the water that is flowing will get kind of stopped, disperse here, disperse there, fill up, and then it can go on its route if it wants to. First site #2 We actually had to cancel it because we have life here now, and I don't want to disturb the animals that much. These are pretty big holes. These are pretty fresh holes. I'll show you guys in a second. And I just don't feel right about digging here. So site one is going to be over there. This is going to be left undisturbed, but I'm going to control the flow of water so that does make that pit stop. I'll still have the check dam, just not this extra extension. Just to show you a couple of quick entryways. That's a pretty large one. This one right here is pretty fresh. Can't see it too much, but we have 2 right there. We have 3 right next to it. 4 is another one. We have a pretty big one in there as well. Again, the camera doesn't really do it justice. We have 2 smaller ones right there. And so I don't mind, changing course. I don't mind changing my plans and going with another site that is going to be less of a disturbance. Luckily, last time I was out here, we have, plenty of different digging sites that we can choose from. I'm not super hell-bent on one. And I guess that is how we're moving differently. We can be respectful to the native animals and plants that are here. This spot completely barren. There are no holes or anything like that. And so this is going to be site number 2. And let me show you the river again. As you can see it even more clearly in here, how it winds like that. I'm standing in it right now. And then boom, how it goes to site number 1 right there. Site number 2 is going to look similar. It's going to have some type of design in this patch right here with it connecting to here. And site number 3 is going to be right there, connecting to the river right here. So site 2 is really giving me pyramid vibes. It's giving me triangle vibes. Okay, you're at one corner, and this is going to be the peak right here, and it's going to be dug out to another corner so that it's touching the rivers on 2 points. What this is going to do is going to allow for this water to be diverted here before going back to like the main riverbed. And I hope you guys can see the vision on why I'm creating so many of these stops and diversions and catchments and these breaks within this riverbed, because you can imagine it, water coming from A straight to Z and on a slope at that is going to be acting as a snowball coming down the mountain. It's going to be picking up a lot of silt. It's going to be picking up a lot of force, and it's going to be a lot more destructive. When we have these different kind of diversions, what we're doing is just slowing it up. Okay, and it's allowing the water to sink in more, and it's allowing the force of the water to just to not have as much force. And so instead of going A straight to Z on a slope, imagine it goes from A to B to C to D, and then you see what I mean, right? It's hitting all of these different corners before getting to Z, and what that does and how that benefits, let's say the people or the water catchment or whatever it is at the Z at the end point, it's going to allow them to have a more constant flow of water. So here we have it. Site number 2 is done. Here is the river of which I would have been referencing. Okay, and along the river, there's going to be this little diversion, this little triangle floating island, I like to call them. This is going to be a second Miyawaki forest right here in this little triangle, in this little spearhead looking shape. This is going to be the trench that is going to be capturing the water. The deepest part obviously being the tip right here, and then bringing the water back out. I may dig a little bit deeper, but for now I'm tired. My hands are getting all messed up. So um, here is the second part of the ditch, which is going to lead the water back to the river. And from here, it's going to keep going down. I might set up something on the side. I don't know. It's going to go into this other diversion of this other floating island, site number 1. And the water is going to flow, 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 flow all throughout here. This is going to be Milwaukee Forest. Again, this is going to be just 100, at least 100 different species of plants, ranging from grasses to trees and everything in between. Just so you have the other angle to look at. It looks like a spearhead. I'm not going to cut this right here because this is a mound, and I know that there are animals living under there or have some type of home base in there. So they're going to keep the water from coming into it because it is a good mound, and it's gonna, I guess it's going to keep the water from coming out of this area right here. But it works perfect with the design. I don't need to disturb the nature, and I'm really happy about how this turned out. So the last step before we get on out of here is to relocate this camera right here. We have been facing it behind me, and that area, the compost is right there. And we've only gotten 2 recordings in the past 7 days. So for me, that's just not enough. I know this place is a lot more active because of all the droppings that I show you and the dead animals and all that type of stuff. So instead, we're going to be facing it towards the peak. We have been able to track several different tracks, and they are kind of pointing that way. They're pointing in that direction. So we're going to test it out. Next episode, we are going to have, or hopefully we're going to have more recordings. And so stay tuned. And there it is, folks. We have set up another camera. And this time it is facing this cool plane right here. Hopefully we see something. I'm not sure what would go out in the open in the middle of the night. But the full moon is coming up, so I know the animals will be coming out. And so hopefully we can capture something with this guy. And that is all she wrote, folks. I am out of here for the day. I have been here for hours. As you guys know by now, hopefully I live hours away. So doing this is, very rewarding, but it also requires a lot of my time, a lot of my attention and my effort. But I know it's all going to pay back in the end. The next episode, what we're going to be focusing on is really trimming up a lot of these plants and creating a lot of organic material to go in all of these ditches that I dug today. So if you guys want to catch up to this point, to episode 12, I advise that you go to the playlist, watch all of them from the start, from 1 to 12, and let me know in the comments how you like this video and what you want to see in future videos. See you next time.